coming on this podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Let me pour you out a little bit more. I've been wanting to have you on this podcast for a while now. So, we have a mutual friend in Amy, who's also been on this podcast. Excuse me. Amy was describing you to me. I was just like, this woman sounds fucking amazing. So thank you so much for coming on here. When did you first come to Shanghai?
I actually came, so I listened to a few of your podcasts.
Yeah.
I think we arrived around the same time.
Okay. So we've had like parallel lives.
Yeah, kind of. I moved here from New York / New Jersey area in 2013.
Okay.
Yeah. I was working at LG prior to that.
Nice.
And I quit my fancy job and moved to China because I was engaged to a lady back at the time.
Congratulations. Now your wife, right?
No,
different lady. Okay, yeah.
I was kind of setting you up for that one, though.
I thought you meant your wife.
No. But, we're still friends.
Yeah.
And then I kind of stuck around for my career. And I've been here since.
You're the second person we've had on who has had a broken engagement.
Yeah.
What is that? I have no idea I'm so far from that. Like I'm whatever the right side of whatever one side of engagement is, I'm on the other side. Like, I can't even do a first date properly. What is that like, breaking off an engagement like that?
Well, I would say it's a very life altering experience.
Right.
It's just like it's just getting dumped, right? Like,
right.
Well, I got dumped.
Sorry to hear that.
No, it's okay. It was like it changed me quite a bit as a person. But I think I am quite proud of myself and how I didn't lose my belief in love. Which I think it's a real danger when something like that happens.
It's an absolute danger when that happens. I think I probably did when that happened, and I think a lot of my attitudes towards dating now are because of not engagements, obviously, but probably previous breakups.
Yeah, but I mean, you got to keep yourself open to love.
Yeah.
Otherwise, actually, you're just going to be the proverbial like hamster in the wheel, right? Right. You're never gonna break out of it.
Yeah. That's been my 20s. you just described my entire 20s. Yeah. Hamster wheel. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That's one of my goals for this year. One of my New Year's resolutions was to, I was going to sound incredibly cheesy on here, to kind of invest more time in thinking about love. Which is a very non-romantic way of looking at it, probably, right?
No, I think the more you think about it, it's just about investment, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like everything other part of your life, right? You want to be in better shape, that takes time.
Yeah. And if you want to get more out of your career, you spend more time thinking about it, right?
So you would say that the relationship is probably similar.
Yeah, I definitely think so.
Okay.
As we might find out throughout this conversation, a lot of my analogies are to do with business.
Yeah, as they should be.
Yeah, and I really think it's about how much time you invest, and then also how much, I think it sounds kind of cheesy, but it's about what you put into the universe.
Of course.
Like if you're, you have a statement of intent that, you want a meaningful relationship in your life. Right. You just put that out into the universe. Then that will happen. Yeah. That will happen for you.
I don't disagree. But I think on the other side, there's a lot of men in their 20s, and I was definitely one of them, who we're just not raised like that. Like, we're not raised to seek that. We're raised to seek the opposite, right? We're raised to seek banging 6 girls at the club tonight, right? Like that's our culture.
Well, as a lesbian, I've definitely been through this phase as well. Yeah. Like after, I became somewhat famous in the lesbian community at one point, in not a good way.
Oh, come on. It's always a good way.
No. But I've definitely been through the very, I have so many hot girls on my WeChat. They all respond to me.
Is that here or is it in Shanghai?
Yeah, that was in Shanghai. That was...
I'll put in some calls after this just to get like a background check on you. Yeah.
Yeah. You can, one of my good friends is Gabby, who's, she's been interviewed many times, and she's known as the godfather of the lesbians in Shanghai. because
That's a thing.
Yeah, it was a thing. Like, there was a community called the LQ back in the day. It's now called QM, and a little less active, or a lot less active. But the absolute pinnacle of the heyday of the LQ was when I was thirsty AF. And so Gabby and I
Dude, that's so crazy. Sorry.
would have all these parties all the time.
Yeah.
And I would literally... I mean... There's definitely been some very...
fun nights. Let's just call it that.
Fun nights.
Fun nights,
Yeah. And it's even more thrilling because of all the predicaments you could get into, you know?
Right. You know, I think this is a big misconception. It almost feels like you guys live a separate life than heterosexual people. And I don't know if that is by design or if that's just the way it is. Because like these parties, I don't hear about them until now, right? Like, and if I don't have any gay people in my life, I don't know this at all.
I would say that in general, the male gay community gets much more like kind of spotlight in terms of being party people.
Why do you think that is? Because I would agree with that statement, but I don't understand why.
I think because it's true.
Okay.
I think that girls tend to be much more... It's like we talked about just now, right? Like, girls are raised thinking more about love or like relationships and so maybe this kind of party culture or, you know, say it as it is a fuck around culture.
Yeah,
you know?
no, dude, I'm there. Yeah, same thing on my side too. Yeah,
it's, you know, much less prominent in the lesbian community,
right?
But there are definitely in the lesbian community there are bastions.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You know, one or two or three or whatever community of fuckboys, as you would say,
or fuck girls.
Yeah, fuck girls. Yeah, yeah, so lesbians also have crazy parties.
It's great to hear.
But in general, on the macro level, I would say the gay guys don't take the trophy for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think their parties are notorious, not just here. I mean, I'm from Vancouver. Vancouver is an incredibly, you know, proud gay and lesbian LGBTQ community, right? Excuse me. But having said that, I didn't grow up with a lot of gay people in my life. I don't know why that is, but I guess maybe it was just a different time.
Well, I don't know. I think I also didn't. I remember I was in 8th grade. In 8th grade, I was in Michigan, and I was watching the Ellen Show, and then I was like, "Oh my god, how could they give like a lesbian a TV show?"
Really? You said that? Yeah.
Well, I was thinking that.
Right.
You know, I was like very flabbergasted that this was allowed to happen.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in 8th grade, I'm sure you were flabbergasted. At that point, did you know, I don't know, this is going to sound incredibly fucking rude question, I'm sorry. Did you know that you were lesbian at that time, or?
Definitely not.
I don't know how this works, and I don't...
funny story though, okay. In 8th grade, I was still, I scrapbook, but it's not like really scrapbooking. Right. I just have a massive box of random memories.
Sure.
I have like...
That's scrapbooking. That's exactly what scrapbooking
is. It's a scrapboxing.
Right, yeah.
But I have like all the notes that we used to pass in middle school between me and my friends. And sometimes I'll like, look at them and it's just like, oh, Usher's abs are so delicious.
Wow.
Like,
yeah.
I was like, oh, gross.
Really? Yeah.
Well, I mean... And my friend group from when I was in 8th grade, there were 4 of us that were kind of besties. And it turns out, I mean, I'm in contact with all 4, I guess, to a certain extent, even now. And 3 of the 4 turned out to be part of the community.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. By the way, I heard, this is something I discovered, like, literally last week, but apparently LGBT isn't the most like politically correct way to say LGBT anymore.
Okay, what is it?
It's RSM.
RSM.
Relationship and sexual minorities.
Interesting.
I know, right? I mean, I only came across this phrase recently.
But, you know, LGBTQ itself is also a fairly new phrase, right? Like,
not really. Like, I mean, my minor in university was like the title of it is, you know, gender and health or something like that. So
right.
like I minored in reproductive health essentially. Okay. But there's already so much research on LGBT. Like, I mean, we had to read all of that,
right.
you know?
Right.
And for that research to be there for us to study it as
right.
undergrads.
Yeah.
It's been around for a while, I guess. Yeah.
One of the things that I would really like to get your opinion on is, you know, as like a heterosexual male, I don't think about my sexuality a lot, actually. You know, like I would not describe that as part of my identity.
Yeah. So.
Whereas a lot of people in you know, your community, I'm not saying you're necessarily that person, but I feel like a lot of people in the community, that is their primary identity.
Yeah, I think that this is a really interesting topic, actually. Someone was I go on Reddit from time to time.
Yeah, we all do.
And one of the threads I'm subscribed to is LGBT.
Sure.
And then there was this like long rant about like they don't know their identity.
Right.
And then like I don't know, maybe it was because it was like 2 a.m. or something. I commented, just let it be. Just be who you want to be.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter, you know? But actually, I think the reason that it figures so prominently in people's identities, or it's perceived like that, is for two reasons. The first reason is that young people drive culture, right?
Yeah.
And
that's so fascinating.
Yeah.
'Cause you're only 30. You're still fucking young as well.
No, I mean, I'm talking about like teens, you know?
Do.
Like, come on, like Snapchat was a whole like.
Yeah, I missed that wave. Yeah.
And
the second thing.
That's them. Like they're coming out. They're
Right.
just starting to, you know, they're coming to their sexual awakening. So obviously that's the conversation that they're most concerned with having, right? Especially when it comes to not just sex but love. It's like, who do you love?
Yeah, I almost feel like we're getting into two separate things though when we discuss that, right? You know, and like I said, I only have one point of view, and it's probably not the healthiest point of view. It's from a heterosexual male point of view, but love and sex are two different things, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Least, you know, and it's really interesting for me because I work with a lot of younger people. You know, my producer, for example, is 20. My social media girl is 20, and a lot of them, they grew up with people coming out at like a very young age. Like a lot of people, maybe not their best friends, but it's within their world.
Yeah.
Whereas I went through school not like that. You know, like we had maybe one or two people that came out when I was in high school. But now it is much more common. And while I think that's a great thing that people are discovering this, it's something I'm still trying to understand. I guess the world's changing much faster than I can adapt to.
No, love and sex are definitely two different things.
Right.
But who you're fucking around with or just having sex with, that's not the thing that makes you want to put your life on the line protesting.
Yes.
It's about who you're in love with.
Right.
Right? And when...
That's interesting. Okay.
Romeo and Juliet is about teenagers who are in love with each other.
Yeah. It's not about a sexual orientation.
Right?
Right.
So that's what I mean when I say it's about when young people learn who they love. That's what gets people real fired up, you know?
Do you think young people are loving more or less now? Because I feel like they're loving less.
I don't know. I don't know. I think that there's throughout history, and this is okay. Then my literature degree comes in here.
Yes, yeah. Throughout English history, lit. Here we go. This is what it's for. Yeah.
We've always been writing about young people and what they do or do not do or feel.
Yeah.
But actually, it's all the same throughout every generation. Like, we think young people do this or that, but I think there's no difference.
I would absolutely agree. There's zero difference because at the end of the day, it's humanity. Stories, more or less, have not changed for thousands of years. The fundamental parts of a story have not changed. Yeah. You know, it's just the dressing around it. Young people absolutely drive culture. Going back to what you said earlier, I want to touch upon this. It's so fucking weird. I mean, I'm 30, you're 30. we're kind of like on that opposite end of that now. Like we're just starting to be on the other side of that peak, right? Like we're still close enough to the young people like Amy and them where we can kind of see and be attached. But like we're on that other side now.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's definitely interesting, but also it's because for me, like I'm married now.
Yeah.
So
congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But so I guess like this, like I feel like I'm at a, different phase of my life, but at the same time, I've always been a massive proponent of gay rights.
Absolutely.
So I I love talking to young, like, gay people, RSM people.
RSM, yeah.
And because I really truly remember what that was like, And then the second reason,
right,
to kind of bring it back, is that when you're in a marginalized part of community, you don't have the space, or you don't feel like you have the space to really be confident about this marginalized part of your identity. So when you come into power, any kind of power, whether that be a Twitter post
or Reddit subforum,
or like and whatever,
right?
The thing that you want to talk about is kind of the part of you that you didn't have power to talk about before, right? So I think those two reasons are kind of why it's perceived as and is to a certain extent the case that RSM or whatever LGBT people talk about their identities so much. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think having the RSM community or the LGBTQ community talk about their identity this much is not a bad thing. It's a process. Like where I get stuck on this, I have my own fight. My own fight is with Asian masculinity. It is a different fight, but it is more or less along the same lines, right?
Yeah.
And I think for me, I don't have an issue with that. I think the lines that I draw lines sometimes because I feel like this takes time. Your fight and my fight, different fights, but it takes time. I think the RSM, RSM community, has done a lot of work over the last 2 decades because when I was in elementary school, it was not like this, right?
Yeah. I mean, I used to do a lot of stand-up poetry, like slam poetry. Yeah.
Damn. Okay.
Performed like a lot. You know? And
dude, that's amazing.
Thank you.
I love poetry.
But one of my first big pieces that I performed to like a lot of people and in front of my favorite author at the time, was like one of the lines that I wrote was like, all oppression is the same. All oppression. So right now you asked me about, so why is the the community so into their identity, but it's the same, right? It's reflected in you. You are doing Shades of Yellow is about the part of your identity that you felt like you couldn't talk about before.
Absolutely. And that part I would agree with, but I probably would push back a little bit in terms of the all oppression is the same. I absolutely do not agree with that. I absolutely do not think that all oppression is the same. All oppression is the same in the sense that it is oppression, yes. But, like when I look at what African Americans have to go through in the U.S. right now, there's no comparison. Like what I'm trying to accomplish with Shades of Yellow is a very different thing than Black Lives Matter and a very different pressing thing, right? I think once this gets escalated to things where like lives are endangered, or is systemic oppression to the point, it is a very different thing, in my opinion.
No, I totally agree with you. And I think that has to do with historiosity.
Yes,
like,
very much.
The Japanese internment camps. At that point, I mean, we should have had a Yellow Lives Matter movement, but we didn't.
There was no Twitter back then. If we had a Twitter...
But that was a real... And it wasn't just the Japanese who got interned. It was all yellow people, right?
Yeah, Chinese people, Koreans,
and at that time, we should have risen up. But we didn't. So really, the Black Lives Matter is amazing. And
very much.
And there's so many times in history where we miss that. We miss that kind of power to the people movement, during the Holocaust, you know,
Right.
it wasn't just Jews who got killed, like
Right.
gay
There's a lot
people.
of gay people,
Gay
people with
people were-
disabilities,
yeah.
you know, different religions, yeah.
Absolutely. So no, I agree that all oppression is not necessarily the same depending on different points in history.
Right.
But the unifying thing is that one group of people in power are denigrating the humanity of another group.
That is so beautifully put. Denigrating the humanity of another group.
I mean,
Yeah, I can see the English lit major.
well, I had to do something with my degree.
Yeah. No, Hannah, you are incredibly eloquent. It's actually very nice to hear. I would love to kind of just ask you, for you personally, right? I mean, we've talked about this a little bit on a macro level, you know, in terms of what this movement stands for. Why are these people doing this? Why do they associate their identity with it so much? For you personally, though, this is like what I see as somebody who is more or less the same as me. I mean, we're the same age. You found somebody that you loved. I'm still looking for her. You know, but you have a strong business acumen. You seem like your life is more or less together. How did that work out? Like at one point you kind of had to decide that being lesbian or being gay, being part of this community is a part of me, but it doesn't define you, I feel like, right? Like I'm talking to you right now and I'm like, your sexuality, your sexual orientation is almost irrelevant to this conversation because that's not how I view you. Like that's not the first thing that I see when I see you, right? And talking to you for a little bit now. When did that happen? Like, did that happen or was that subconscious?
Actually, this is a great story, so I'm super glad you touched on it.
Yeah.
Actually, I was super into gay rights for a really, really long time. And by gay, I mean the whole
Lesbian. Sure, yeah.
Rainbow community.
Yeah.
And I used to like go to protests and all of those things, and I would tell my mom about this, and she's very Korean. She'd be like, "Oh my god." But once she had a really, heart-to-heart conversation with me about this, and she was like, "Hannah, okay, you really, really want to change something. You really, really want to make a difference. But in order for you to make a difference, like don't be the 尊表, don't be the soldier on the front line. Be the general." You know what I mean? And actually, this whole conversation was because she was trying to get me to study more. But
mom sounds hella Korean right now.
Yeah, and she's a school principal.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
like,
nice.
imagine
Yeah,
helicopter Korean mom who's
Yeah.
also a school principal. And she was like, "You really want to make a difference. Be in a position of power." And I was like, whatever, that's bullshit, mom. Like the generals have shit without soldiers, you know? That was my counter argument at the time.
Great argument.
It's, you know, I think it's still valid. It's still valid.
I'm not sure that's how wars are won, but yes, it's a valid argument.
And you know, it was only after I got my degree. I went to the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and you know, I graduated with an inaugural award, like
Nice.
in for women in leadership.
Nice.
Because I started a student magazine called What the F. This F stands for Fresh, Funny, and Feminist.
Nice.
And I actually even got to talk to Obama's sister about it.
Wow.
There was like a big panel, and the most promising like students got to like have dinner with her.
Nice.
And
Was that you?
I was like in that panel, which is really funny because I was also on academic probation twice during university.
Yeah. What was her dinner that night?
It was just a dinner and a meet and greet, and everyone got to talk to her about like whatever their ideas and like just college kid stuff. But I remember, you know, she was really into like the magazine that we were producing. And so that really turned me onto this idea of organizing I was also like in the executive board for the college Democrats in university. So University of Michigan has the largest student political organization in the whole of the U.S.
Okay, like registered student stuff,
Yeah, registered student.
That makes sense, actually. Now that you say that, I feel like I know a couple of people who went to Ann Arbor and like they are like very on top of their political shit.
Yeah.
In hindsight, makes sense.
So, like I knew a little bit about organizing, but when I founded that magazine, it came from a place of like anger, like because we were taking some class and then we were looking at how women were portrayed in health magazines, and we were like, and the professor had us go around and talk about, okay, so what can we do? Mm-hmm. And then everyone was giving some like, oh, we should be more conscientious. I was like, fuck that.
Yeah.
Like, we should start our own health magazine, you know? Yeah. And then I literally turned to the girl next to me. It was like, because I was saying my spiel. And then the girl next to me was like, yeah, we should all do that. And I was like, yeah, do you want to found it with me? And she was like,
this is how cult leaders are born. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we founded it. And then I knew immediately that we needed, like, it wasn't going to be taken seriously, just students doing it, So I went to like the kind of the most feminist and like kind of like politically active professors around the university, I Googled it, I looked it up.
You did your research.
Yeah, I just went to their office. I was like, hey, like, we're going to do this. Can you come on board as an advisor? Like, can you come on board as like a, sponsor? And then we're like, hey, okay, so if we really want to be taken seriously as a magazine, we need to have ads. We need to have like business buy-in. So we would go.
You did all this when you were in college?
Yeah.
You were what, 19, 20?
Yeah.
Damn.
So we were going around to business, and businesses bought ad space on our magazine.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And can I ask you, like, when your first sales call that went yes, like the first time you saw an actual business that paid for your ad in the magazine that you published, wasn't that like a fucking amazing high?
That was an amazing high, but you know what? It wasn't as amazing as when we did a massive call for readers. I mean, for writers. Sorry. And I knew that. In college, everyone wants to be published, right?
Sure.
So that's how I messaged the call for writers.
Do you want to be published?
Yeah. And then we had our first kind of meeting, our town hall, and there were 60 people. And because we played the strings right, the university paid for all the free food that night,
Nice,
and we had like free pizza and like 60 people showed up.
Like a party.
Fired up, you know, and then one of the businesses that bought ads gave us their venue for like a free like a launch party. It was hella fancy, you know.
Yeah. Dude, Haena, this is fucking awesome to hear that you did this at such a young age, because like so much of you now makes much more sense. I feel like, and I'm sure also that you have learned a lot since then, right? Like I'm sure you've changed a lot. Like, I hope. Once again, I don't know you personally. This is the first time we met, actually. But I can almost feel like maybe you learned to kind of how to channel that raw energy into things with much more productive and reciprocal. And that affects your staff in a positive way and grows, right? Yeah.
And this kind of circles back to, I think, your original question, which was that like like my sexual identity is not like so much right now at the forefront of kind of who I am as a person, but I would say that it's almost the opposite, is because I was a minority and because I had this kind of righteous anger that I learned that we need to organize, we need to...
Yeah, absolutely. That's how you have to... Look, that's what we're doing right now. The way that I put it is, this is the first time in my life that I've understood patience. Because you just... When you grow up, people, your parents, everybody tells you, oh, you should be patient, right? But you don't actually... There's no chemical reward there when you're 16, because the stakes just aren't high enough. This is the first time in my life now where I have been a little bit patient. By patient, I mean like a year, so it's not even that long, right? But I've tried